beautiful people. My name is Emma.
And I'm MC.
And we are your hosts of the G-Forces podcast. So, this upcoming weekend is the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And Abu Dhabi is similar to Singapore, where it's only been around, I don't know how long the city's been around. But the race has only been around for the last, decade. And so all of the drivers who have driven that race, you all know who they are, or at least you've heard their names.
You're new.
Yes, that's true.
Unless this is episode 1.
Yeah, that is true.
They're not historically enough that give us 30 years we'll do a historical driver.
They're all still I don't know if they're all still alive. I would maybe.
I don't know.
That's not something I want to assume. But who knows? Most of them are, I believe. So later on in their life, when they're all in their 70s, then we can talk about them.
Yeah.
They're too young now.
Yeah, they're too, relevant.
Yeah, they're, still relevant in social media now.
Yeah, and I feel like with our drivers of the week, we like to just, deep dive. Mm-hmm. Because I also, the last ones we've done have either been, the name of the circuit or in some way, some huge national treasure for that country. And, I'm not saying the drivers haven't come out of Abu Dhabi, but it's just, it's not as new as Vegas, but it's too new still.
Yeah.
But...
anyways.
We'll get back to that. Probably postseason. We'll do more in-depth, full-length episodes for Driver of the Week.
Yes, we will. We'll probably just do an episode for a specific driver. So, but instead of doing a Driver of the Week and a Part of the Week, we figured we would talk about the track map, so MC will cover that.
As per
and
usual.
Then I wanted to talk about, because we only got into the sport this year, we didn't get to watch this live happen, and I only watched it through Drive to Survive. I want to go over the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and the controversy surrounding that, because this is a huge thing.
Well, it's also going to be fun because, as per usual, the way I do it, I didn't finish Drive to Survive. Yes. So I didn't get to that season. So I'm like you, I'm ready. I'm excited. This is something people talk about, I know nothing about, so...
I almost feel... So Toto made a comment going into this race weekend relating to him and Mercedes and Ferrari being very close for their spot in the Constructors' Championship. And the comment, I feel like, is a dig at the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
I mean, it's something that is always talked about. I've just kind of, in... typical fashion, I just nod and shake my head when it is talked about because I didn't do the research. But it's something that is continuously brought up. There's always, weird underhanded comments made. It's this, kind of elephant in the room. Yeah. All these, I mean, not all these, 2 years later, but it's definitely this, awkward energy seems to be surrounding that. It just seems really awkward.
Yeah, so I figured I would give a background on what exactly happened, and then we could discuss our thoughts on it, and then we can also discuss how we think things are going to go at this last race, and who we think is going to end up where on the driver's standings, and who we think is going to end up where on the constructor's standings.
I mean, I didn't even think to look at that before the episode, but is anyone, really, really close? In terms
There's a few drivers that are pretty close with each other.
Yeah.
That if, say one of them has a horrendous race and the other one does really well, then they would move past them in the driver's standings. I think the constructor standings, I think Mercedes and Ferrari are that close that, this race, how they finish this race could make a difference.
Okay.
So, it's not 2021, though, where the winner was decided at the race.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, I have all of the track info and a few just little interesting tidbits that I want to share with you guys. So let's get into what we're going to see this weekend.
MC. Where are we?
Abu Dhabi Grand Prix 2023.
The last race this season.
Yeah, so for those that have been listening since the beginning, you can just scroll on your phone right now. we have not been doing this the whole season.
No.
We hyper fixated on F1 the way I think most of the new fans are, and then we realized 99% of our conversations were about F1, so we decided to do this silly little podcast. So not having the full season, and only having, I mean, I don't know how many races.
We started right before, we started in the middle of the summer break, because our first episode, we were discussing silly season.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm kind of bummed. It's the last race weekend of the season. I saw a few other, female creators on TikTok being like, I'm new. What do we do?
Yeah, we don't really know what the protocol is for this. Like, with the summer break, it's only a month long, and that's when all the craziness is going on.
Yeah.
But during winter break, I mean,
we have like Christmas.
It's the end of November, and we've got December, January, and most of February, and then I don't think testing starts until sometime in March. No, maybe February.
It was February last year.
So we've got at least 2 months of nothing.
But not for you guys. We're gonna be coming out with some great zazzy
we do plan on it.
Like,
I do think we might take some time off though.
Yeah, so around like
Christmas time.
I guess we'll just talk about this right now, and then I'll go back into the track info. Around Christmas time, we're probably, like, Christmas into the New Year's, we're just gonna take a break. And then we'll deep dive into some historical things, and then as more information comes out about the new season, we'll start to get to the more relevant news in the Formula One world. But in this off season, I don't know if we'll do 2 episodes a week or just 1.
If we do an episode a week, it will be just 1 episode likely, unless something absolutely insane happens.
Yeah. But we're just gonna take a little bit of a break. It won't be that crazy, and hopefully, you guys will be able to, go through the holiday season for a few days without us.
I know.
But anyways, back to what we
back to the actual race.
So, Abu Dhabi Grand Prix 2023. So, the official race name in typical Formula One fashion is the Formula One Etihad Airways Abu Dhabi Grand Prix 2023. Lenovo's out this weekend. We got no Lenovo.
We do believe we're saying Etihad correctly.
If we're not,
we apologize if we are not.
Please let us know. I want to always make sure that I'm respectful and know how to pronounce things, so correct me if I'm wrong. The track name is the Yas Marina Circuit.
Yas.
And then the location, we are in Abu Dhabi, and that is in the United Arab Emirates, otherwise known as UAE. So this, what?
I was just gonna say, if you're a listener and you don't know where the UAE is, or you don't know other cities...
Emma looked at a map before this.
Yes, I did. Dubai is also in the UAE, so I feel like most people know Dubai. I feel like most people know Abu Dhabi, but mainly because of that really... Is it Dubai or Abu Dhabi that has the really big building?
They both do.
Like the Mission Impossible one that he climbed.
I don't know. I know one of them was in one of the Sex and the City movies. That's why I know it.
And I know Abu Dhabi has that gigantic mosque as well. It's famous.
Yeah, I don't know their, like...
But anyways, it's in that area of the country.
Of the world.
Oh my god. It's been a long day, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's Thanksgiving Eve for those Americans that are listening. So this track was built in 2009, and I did notice something. This is something we haven't talked about, but I kind of want to do maybe a mini-sode. This was designed by Herman Tilke. I believe I'm saying his last name right. It's Tilke. He's done, he designed the Las Vegas track. He did the Singapore track. He's a huge, he's helped with either the building of COTA or the reconstruction, what?
If this well-known racetrack designer designed Vegas, why did everyone go into it being like, this is going to be a horrendous track? This man has designed all of these famous and well-loved tracks. Why do people go into it being like, this is going to be awful?
There's only a handful. I think there's only 4 guys that the FIA actually acknowledge as some level of track involvement. But I don't know. Herman Tilke is a guy I want to look into because he was super involved, and I just started to notice it as I was doing research. But so it was built in 2009. I think 2006 or 2007 was when they broke ground. And that was kind of when it was first announced that F1 was coming. The first F1 Grand Prix was in 2009 when it opened, and I think
Sebastian Vettel won it.
Sebastian Vettel won it, and it like they shipped in the track is shipped in from England, like some England like stone quarry, like it's
fancy.
They did a lot for this track. The circuit length is 5.281 kilometers or 3.28 miles. They're doing a little bit more laps this weekend, so we're doing 58 laps in total. And then the race distance is 306.183 kilometers or a little over 190 miles. There are 16 turns in this track, and just something I want to mention is that the track didn't always look like this. In 2001, the track was redone. Not 2001.
2011?
2021. There were changes made to the track, so I'll talk about that towards the end. So there's 16 turns, and then as right now, there are 2 DRS zones. DRS detection zone 1 starts between lap 4 and 5, and then activation begins. Turn 4.
Turn 4. I was like, so you can only use it on that.
It's like speed traps right now. Okay. Let me rephrase that. DRS detection zone 1 starts between turn 4 and 5, and then activation begins after turn 5. And then DRS detection zone 2 starts after turn 7, and activation begins at turn 8. The current lap record, again, they did make changes to the track, so this is for the updated, there's only been 2 years. But the lap record for the current, the track looks like, what we're going to see this weekend. Max Verstappen, in 2021, obviously driving the Red Bull, he did a lap in a minute, 26.103 seconds. So like I did say, the track layout did change in 2021, and a lot of people considered it like a dreary event. One commentator even went so far as saying that it was consistently disappointing. I think that it was just, I don't know if it was boring because I didn't see it. I just don't think it was like the easiest to pass. Like, I don't think you saw a lot of action. Okay. And on top of it, it's the last race of the season. When it first came out, like, people, like, really had positive things to say about it. They had positive things about, like, the way the tires gripped. But I think just the layout got stale. Yeah. So they went and they did end up making changes. I believe some turns were taken out, and that straightaway that kind of runs in the middle. I don't know if that was original or if they were talking about a different one. Okay. But there were just, I think it was a different one. But they were just like changes to the turns.
So the layout last year was then different than 2021?
2021 was the first year with a different layout.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also in 2021, a deal was struck that Abu Dhabi would retain the contractual rights to hold the final race of the season until 2030. So now...
Okay, that makes... Because I was so confused why Abu Dhabi was going to be after Vegas and why they didn't have all... Because there's a few races in that area of the world throughout the calendar. Like, there's the race in Jeddah, there's the race in Bahrain, there's the race in Qatar. Like, it confused me why... all of
They're
them
jumping internationally.
Why it didn't make sense to me, but I guess that makes sense now.
Yeah, so that was it was an extension deal, and so 2030 as of now, unless something happens, like Abu Dhabi is the last one.
Yeah. I wonder if they would ever turn all of the move all of the races in that area to the end of the season, so then they're not jumping all over the place.
I mean, I don't know if it has to deal with, like, seasons, though, too.
Yeah, like temperature.
I don't know enough.
Yeah.
About why they don't do the schedule more sensical, but it could be about availability or whatnot. I don't know.
I have no idea. I am interested to see how weather is this weekend. I haven't looked at like a weather app or anything, but the last time we were in this area of the world was Qatar, and we all know how that went.
Yeah, but Qatar, I think it was an extenuating circumstance.
Yeah, I think it was unique.
They've done Abu Dhabi at this time on the calendar year before.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to have a Qatar situation.
Hopefully.
I mean, they've been doing this for,
a few years
almost 15 years.
Yeah.
I think things would have.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think it's going to be fun, but yeah, kind of bummed. We're at the end of the season. So that's our last track rundown until next year. And the exciting thing is, because we didn't start until halfway through the season, I have so much more track information to look up.
And we're going to have everything prepped ahead of time so that we're not stressed throughout the season.
Yeah. We will.
We will.
We will.
Okay, I think we can talk about the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix now.
Let's hear the drama. I feel like I'm sitting down to story time with you.
It basically is. I've practically written out an entire storybook in my notebook.
It's a page and a half.
That's a storybook to me, even though I'm a huge reader. Okay. So, just to start off, I'm going to give some context on the 2021 F1 season. So, from what I could tell, it seemed like Max had a really strong beginning of the season, and I think that he had actually won more races than Lewis. The season was very close between the two of them, though. It was basically them two competing for the win the majority of the time. And going into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, both of them were even with 369.5 points. So basically, It was whoever won, or say, whoever came ahead in the race was going to win the championship.
Okay.
And there were some tensions between them because of how close they were the whole season. So at Silverstone, they had a big crash, and at Monza, they had a big crash, the two of them. And Toto and Christian both had felt that their drivers were being treated unfairly by the FIA race director, Michael Masi, who is no longer with F1 and the FIA.
He's the only name that I've heard of, yeah, and I think that's because
of the Toto Wolff quote of Mikey, no, this is so wrong.
No. When I was doing the research on the track,
did they talk about him?
There was a little blurb of 2021 brought this, and Mike Mussey, and he got replaced.
So he was the only race director at that point. Now they have rotating race directors.
Yeah, there's two, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the little blurb on.
Yeah, I think they started doing rotating race directors because of this, and the potential that there could be a bias.
And this is not me, what does a race director do?
They're the one who...
They're the head.
Runs everything.
Okay.
They're the one who, will eventually, with the stewards, makes the call, from what I can understand, on certain things. So
he's important.
Yes.
Has a lot of power.
Yeah. And then the last two things to note ahead of time, just right before Abu Dhabi, in Brazil, Max was handed a penalty for a late move on Hamilton. And then in the Saudi Arabia race, there were multiple punishments that came to Max for separate incidents against Lewis. So Max had been hit with a bunch of penalties ahead of time before Abu Dhabi. I'm not sure how many penalties Lewis was hit with. I was getting the vibe from the articles I was reading was that Max might have been unfairly given more penalties than Lewis, potentially. Okay. But also, this was at the point in time where, everybody loved Lewis, and people didn't really want Max to win. It was, it was, the changing of the guards,
Yeah. He had the fan backing.
Yeah. So I don't know whether people were being treated unfairly or not, just telling you what the articles were saying. So we get to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And during qualifying, Max secured pole position, But when they actually came to the race, Lewis led into the first corner. So I believe Lewis had qualified P2. So it was just a battle of who could get to the first corner first, and it was Lewis.
Okay.
And if what you said was correct, that it was difficult to pass, then that is definitely true for this case, because Lewis just like blew past Max, and Max had a hard time passing him completely. Because then when we get to turn 6, Max tried for the inside, and Lewis took the runoff area, and he was able to retain his lead, which normally you can't go off into the runoff and keep your lead if someone's passing you. But I also couldn't find a clip of that pass, so I don't know if like Max had pushed him off or whatnot. Like there wasn't enough room, and so he might have been in the runoff because of that. I don't really know.
Just so you know, if you ever have to do the F1 TV app has like archival videos.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I was really tired before this.
No, I know. I'm just saying, and for those that don't know, if you want to go back and watch the race, like
you can watch all of the races,
all of the older
up until
races.
like from like anything that they filmed. Like I
one
point was
it goes back.
I randomly started watching like the 2010 season, I think.
Yeah. You threw that on. Weird picture quality.
Yeah, it looked like it was from like the 90s.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Anyway.
So Red Bull has actually protested to Michael Masi about that what Lewis had done, but the stewards deemed no investigation was necessary, and so I think that this was again Red Bull getting frustrated that Lewis might not have been penalized the way he should have. At least that's from Red Bull's perspective. I don't know what the actual situation was. And after that, David Croft, Sky Sports person, you definitely heard the name before, said that Lewis and Mercedes were infinitely better than Max and Red Bull. I'm guessing that Mercedes, in this situation, I'm guessing that Mercedes' car was just flying compared to Red Bull's. I don't think he was meaning like Mercedes overall as a whole is so far superior to Red Bull. I don't think he was saying that.
Okay. That was not the vibe.
No, that would never be the vibe. And actually, Christian Horner told Sky Sports on the pit wall in the last 10 laps that they were going to need a miracle for those last 10 laps in order for Max to win. And like the article that I read on Autosport, it literally in all bold just goes, and they got a miracle.
Oh my god.
So at lap, there were some varying sources for this one. Some people said lap 50, some people said lap 52. I don't know. Lap 50 to 52.
Between those laps,
Nicholas Latifi, aka Go TV, crashed into the barriers while chasing Mick Schumacher. They both had been lapped at this point, and they were like chasing for 16th. So like not to the point where you're not chasing for points. And
it's just pride at that point. Yeah.
And the crash was so like, why did you need to crash in the last 10 laps of the race when I'm sorry, your place at that point doesn't matter?
Yeah.
When other people are literally racing for the championship.
I mean, I'm sure the guy didn't do it on purpose.
Obviously. But
yeah.
Don't take unnecessary risks in those situations, in my opinion. But also, I'm not a racer, so like, who knows? So because of that, a safety car was called out, but Mercedes and Red Bull then had to figure out strategy decisions. So either from Mercedes' perspective, they could either pit Lewis onto fresh tires and risk the race ending behind the safety car, so then he would end up behind all of those cars. Or do not pit Lewis, keep the lead, but risk the race restarting and Max hunting Lewis down on new soft rubber. So this is where things get a little dicey.
Oh, God.
So Mercedes decided to do the latter, so they didn't pit Lewis, they kept the lead, and they risked the race restarting. And with that, Max then decided to actually pit behind the safety car for new tires. I think he put some new softs on. And because Mercedes didn't pit because they thought that with the crash that had happened, there wasn't going to be enough time for the race to properly restart based on the regulations. Because there are rules and regulations for how a restart can happen and how a safety car can go into the pit, which is what I'm going to get into towards the end of this.
Okay.
Because that is part of the controversy of this situation. So, Max rejoined the track with five lapped cars between him and Lewis. So they had already lapped those cars. On lap 56, on like the TV, on the screens, a message from race control came out saying lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. Which, when I actually went through the regulations from 2021 before this to take a look and see what that meant and see if there was any extenuating circumstances to that. Typically, if you're going to say that, that's it. Like, you can't go back on that.
Yeah.
It changed, actually. So then on lap 57, so the next lap, reminder, there's only 58 laps in this race. On lap 57, it was told that the five cars between Lewis and Max were to overtake and pass them. So in the rules and regulations, it seemed there were two different ones that kind of contradicted themselves. So you could either tell cars to overtake and pass the safety car and catch up, like specifically like a few cars. I wasn't sure if it was like one car you could tell to overtake or if it was including a few cars. So I think that was an ambiguous statement that like Red Bull was able to use to argue with. But then there's also another one that says like if you're gonna allow lapped cars to overtake, you have to allow every lapped car to overtake. They only allowed 5 of them and there was actually more lapped cars that were behind Max after he came out of the pit. And so technically, if you're gonna say lapped cars can overtake, all of the lapped cars
that's so
have to.
weird.
They only allowed the cars between Max and Lewis, and this is when Toto came onto the mic, onto the whatever the radio, and was like, that's when he had the quote of like, Mikey, this is so wrong. This is no. And Mercedes' argument of this whole situation was we didn't pit Lewis because we felt that the regulations, like there wasn't going to be enough time, and also that there were going to be cars in between if Max ended up going into the pit, that there'd be cars in between. And if they had known that all those lapped cars were going to be able to move ahead, why wouldn't they have pitted Lewis for some new tires then so that him and Max could really battle it out in the end?
Wow.
And apparently Michael Masi had responded being like, this is a car race. We want to see racing in the last lap. And in the regulations, safety cars, I don't know if you've ever realized this in the race, how they always say the safety car will go in at the end of the next lap. So
I've never noticed that.
I've noticed that they always say that the safety car will go in at the end of the next lap, or at the end of this lap they'll finally tell us, because so basically they'll say that everything's cleared and then the safety car has to do one last lap after
to ensure safety.
Yes.
Because it's a safety car.
They did not do the extra lap, because if they had done the extra lap, that would have been the last lap of the race. The race would have ended behind the safety car. And so then, because they did not follow the regulations in that sense, because you can argue the overtake cars, whatever, can pass, but then the safety car rule is really plain and simple. Like, it's super crystal clear in the regulations. And so to allow the safety car to go in before the last lap was technically against the rules. And so then that is why Michael Masi ended up getting fired. I'm pretty sure, because he did not follow the very clear rules. And yeah, I agree that like it's a car race and you want to see the races, like you want to see racing, but the rules are the rules, as we've said.
I just, that is like, that's so like my whole understanding was just that it was like Mercedes against Red Bull, but I didn't realize that it was really like Mercedes and Red Bull against the FIA.
Yeah, you know? And because the whole season, both Toto and Christian have had like their theories that their drivers are being treated unfairly, and then this big last call in the very last race that's going to decide who the champion is, then basically favoring Red Bull, because Max had gone in to get new tires and they knew that at this point because he was already out there, and then to allow the cars to pass was already a weird spot. and then to not let the safety car stay out for the time that it's supposed to, it's like this, oof. And
it
this
honestly
is...
feels like the head guy... Okay, this is not true, and don't spread this. Like, don't think that I'm, like, I don't know anything. But it literally sounds like the guy, like, was, like, illegally betting and threw the race.
Yeah, so just so you know the actual result of the race, Max ended up passing Lewis in that last lap because he had brand new tires and Lewis didn't.
Yeah, because Lewis was on, like...
Yeah. And so Max ended up winning the race by like 2 seconds because brand new tires are going to get that for you.
Yeah, brand new softs.
Yeah.
Like...
And so he ended up winning the race and therefore winning the championship. I think it really sucks because Max did win the majority of the races that season.
That was his first championship,
It was his first championship, and I don't think that he was undeserving. I think he was more than deserving of the championship that season. I just think the way that the last race happened and the way that he won the championship was, in my opinion, from what I've understood, it was wrong, and it also feels like it spoiled his first win because there are still people today that are like, Lewis Hamilton, the 8-time world champion, because Max didn't really truly win it. Like, people will say that, and like even some drivers have slipped up, being like, "Oh yeah, when Lewis won his 8th world championship," and then they're like, I meant Max when he won his first."
And obviously, like, we're not in the rooms, like, we're just spectators.
I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in that conversation.
The worst part is too is like, from the outside looking in, it was like the FIA.
It was the FIA. It seems like that whole season had screwed up.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe there's something up with him. I don't know.
I have no idea. We don't know enough about the background of him and his situation, but yeah, it just seemed like the FIA or the stewards in general were making a lot of bad calls, and then it affected who was going to win the drivers' championship. And like, before even doing this research, the little bit that I knew about this race, I had already come to the conclusion that I would have been fine with Lewis or Max winning the championship. Didn't really matter to me. Just don't think that the race was fair from what I had understood at the beginning. And now doing this just reaffirms I would have been fine with whoever won the race as long as it was fair, as long as the rules were being followed. And this is just one race in the season. I don't know if bad calls were made in other races.
Well, it sounds like
and that could have determined that, like, if bad calls were made penalizing Max in other races, that could have been the fault that ended up having him in this position where he had to fight for his championship that he probably could have already won earlier on.
Yeah.
And vice versa for Lewis. There could have been bad calls for him that, like, he may have won the championship earlier on if he didn't have those calls made for him. So it just seemed sketchy, the whole race.
Damn.
And so I think that, so Toto made a comment saying, I feel fine going into Abu Dhabi because we have a fair race director.
I mean, I think the blame has to go to the guy. Like, you can't continue to harp on Max.
No.
You can't
And I think that's also a problem. There's a lot of Lewis fans that will hate on Max for this. It's not his fault.
Yeah, I think hearing this, I mean, I know you read a handful of articles. It's sad because I did think Red Bull did something slimy as someone who didn't know anything whatsoever, and to know that, like, well,
they weren't fully innocent. They did call. There were reports of Christian Horner calling Michael Massa, being like, "Are we gonna race or what?"
Yeah, that part is what's bothering me the most, is the, like, we want a car race. It's like,
so with Christian Horner making comments like that, it's almost like he pushed it to. Yeah. But then I also we don't know if there were dirty calls made on, like, in every race.
Yeah.
Because there very well could have been.
I mean, that's a lot of power to hold,
and I wonder if now, because one of our biggest complaints for the season that we've watched, for the half of the season that we've watched, I feel like for me has been, there have been a lot of things that the leading drivers have done that they haven't gotten penalties for, but then people further back on the grid have gotten penalties for the exact same things. I wonder if they don't call penalties on those people because they don't want the situation to happen again.
Yeah, but that's not fair either. I don't know.
I agree.
Grow a pair and be an adult. Like,
I
this
agree.
is your entire job is to sit here and be the regulators. And the thing is, we haven't seen consistent regulations. And it sounds like it was even worse a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, maybe there have been improvements, but, like, I'm sorry, George Russell impeded, Max impeded, give them both a 5-second penalty, or give them back a grid. Like, I don't know, it's your job. Like, that is your whole job. Yeah. Not your whole, I'm sure they have a lot of other things to do, but that's your main freaking function.
Their job is to understand the rule book completely, and to make decisions based on that.
And it's not like the friggin' Constitution where you have to sit there and read and interpret. Like, I feel like the rule book
that was the thing. It was almost like they were trying to phrase it as it was like the Constitution, where it was up to interpretation. And I think that
you wrote the rule book.
I know.
Interpret what you wrote. It's not like the Constitution where it's a bunch of dead people we're trying to figure out.
And the regulations, like, they have a new packet of regulations every single year.
Every year.
Most of the time, it's very similar to what it was the year before, but there might just be a few changes. But yeah. So, yeah, that was kind of the weird stuff that was going on.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is, not in your storytelling, but in what the public knows, I definitely feel like there's plot holes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there are 100% plot holes. And obviously red flags from all three sides.
Yeah.
But I'm sure this will be one of those things in, like, 30 years, they're gonna do a documentary on it, and that's when we're all gonna figure out what really happened.
Oh, I am positive that they will do a documentary on this.
Like the tell-all, or like Lewis's biography.
They'll do like a whole like TV show or docuseries on the 2021 season. Yeah. Like it'll probably,
once they're all retired.
Yeah, it'll end up being like Hamilton versus Verstappen, like
2021
edition.
Ford versus Ferrari, essentially. Yeah.
So, I'm excited to see that when it eventually comes out.
Yeah, but that's going to be like 25 years from now.
I know, we're going to be old people at that point.
Wonder
we get to relive our glory days.
Maybe we'll go to the premiere. Who knows?
Us in our 50 years old.
Yeah. After we're at like episode 1,000 of the podcast.
Come and watch the movie with us, guys.
Yeah. This hypothetical situation that we've clearly made up.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we can get into our predictions and everything else that we want to talk about for this upcoming weekend. So, for the driver's standings, we're going to go over the drivers and the constructor standings. Since it is the last race of the season, we can walk through all of them and tell you where everybody is at the moment. So, obviously, Max was in first, already won the championship, so no one's going past him.
We'll say the points, too.
He has 549 points.
This is as of...
just him individually.
Wednesday before Abu Dhabi.
Checo is in second, and he has 273 points. So his teammate has double the points he has, plus a few.
So Max and Checo aren't moving. So and those who don't know either, there was potential possibility if Checo hadn't gotten points last weekend of Lewis passing him, because Lewis is currently in the third standing, but unfortunately now that gap has become too big, so it won't happen.
Yeah. So Lewis is in third with 232 points. Carlos is in fourth with 200. So I don't think Lewis is gonna move. I think he's stuck there no matter, even if like the next person, Carlos, were to win, he still wouldn't be able to pass him.
Yeah, the gap's too large.
Yeah, so it's too big. So Carlos is in fourth with 200 points. Fernando is in fifth with 200 points. So obviously one of them's going somewhere. We don't know. I think that this racetrack is going to suit Ferrari more than Aston.
Well, and on top of it, Lando Norris is currently at 195 points. So we have those three. So what place are they currently in? That's
fourth, fifth, and sixth.
So my biggest concern is I don't think it's going to be a great weekend for Lando.
No, the track does not look like it's going to be a great track for him. I think he's still recovering. Vegas.
Yeah, I think post the crash from Vegas, I think it's going to be hard. So I think Lando is kind of locked in where he is.
Yeah. So I think, but like also you never know.
Yeah.
So who knows? Those 3 spots I do think are the ones that are possibly going to switch.
I am curious too because this is the last race. Like, they can go balls to the wall. And I think those 3 might.
I could see those 3 going
being
absolutely
like crazy. Yeah.
Then Charles is in 7th with 188 points.
So he's
close, but those 3 would have to absolutely shit the bed for him to move past them.
Not necessarily.
He would have to win, and they would have to get, like, 5th.
And honestly, the Ferrari was there, though. I can see Charles moving somewhere.
Given the track record of where the Ferraris have been finishing this season, and where, like, Lando and Fernando have finished, I don't see... I could see maybe Charles moving past Lando, but not Fernando and Carlos.
Interesting.
But you never know. George is in 8th with 160 points. He's locked in there.
Yeah.
Not going anywhere.
Sorry, George.
Then Oscar's in 9th with 89 points. I think that he's pretty much locked in there unless Lance were to come in and, like, win. Because
but that would be crazy.
That would be a wild end to the season.
I mean,
all the questions from Lance's haters would be like fully answered. Like Lance is still there.
It's the power of that mustache and goatee, man.
So yeah, Lance is in 10th with 73 points. Pierre is in 11th with 62, and Esteban is in 12th with 58. So I think those 2 have a possibility of switching back and forth. At the end of the day, they are the same team, so like it's not positive. A huge deal if one of them passes the other because they're still getting points for their team.
Yeah.
Alex Albon is in 13th with 27 points. I think he's locked in. Yuki is in 14th with, 13 points. Unless Valtteri were to kill it this weekend, which you never know.
So Yuki's at what? 13?
13 and Valtteri is at 10.
You never know. I mean, he would have to have, he top would have, 6 finish. Like, top 7.
Yeah, but, like, also, sometimes we're randomly surprised by a car.
Yeah. I think, where there's less of a gap, like, when there's, like, a 10-point gap, I think that's, any of those gaps are up for grabs. Like, yeah. I think the 20 to 25 gaps, I think that's going to be harder because my prediction, Max isn't a freaking win. He's going to win.
Obviously.
So, like, no one else is going to get that many points. Like, that amount that I think is necessary for certain people to pass.
Yeah, I agree. Then Hülkenberg is in 16th with 9 points. Again, like, all these at the bottom, if one of them, like, does really well somehow, then they could move up and change things around a little bit. So, yeah, Hülkenberg is in 16th with 9 points. Danny Rick is in 17th with 6 points. Zhou Guanyu is in 18th with 6 points as well. K-Mag is in 19th with 3. Liam Lawson is in 20th with 2 points. And Logan Sargent is in 21st with 1. And Nick DeVries is in 22nd with 0 points.
R.I.P.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be a few changes here. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, the people between 4, 5, and 6 move around a little bit, and then we see a little bit of movement possibly between 11 and 12, and then a little bit at the bottom, just depending on how people do.
I can't really imagine, like, a crazy toss-up. I think we're kind of past that point. I think the last crazy toss-up was the Lewis Checo possibility.
Yeah.
I think that, I think some people might move around, but I don't think it's going to be crazy.
I agree.
So.
And then let's go to the Constructors' Championship. Shocker, Red Bull, 122 points. In first. They've already won the Constructors' Championship. Obviously not going anywhere.
It's signed, sealed, delivered.
Mercedes is in second with 392 points. Ferrari is in third with 388 points. So they're 4 points away.
That is the one that I think is going to be a toss-up.
I think
it's Ferrari's gonna pass Mercedes.
Yeah, I agree. If you didn't hear what MC just said, she just mumbled
it.
Sorry. We both think Ferrari's gonna pass Mercedes.
I don't know. I just
they've been struggling with the Mercedes cars so badly recently.
So drastically
bad
crap in the last 3 weekends.
I just what happened?
I just feel like it is the car of doom.
Yeah.
No one wants to be dealing with this car.
They're so ready to be done.
And I also think it's they'll have it for a second and then they just lose it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how they perform at Abu Dhabi. I don't know how George and Lewis, we haven't seen it, so I don't know how they perform.
Yeah.
Either. So, yeah, I don't know. And Lewis is just not.
Lewis is in a bad mindset, I feel like.
He's tired. He needs a spa day. He needs some R&R.
Fourth is McLaren with 284 points. And then fifth is Aston Martin with 273. So that could change again. If Lance and Fernando have a fantastic race, or they do decent, and say one of the McLarens crash.
Yeah, I don't know.
That is one that's not as easy to change, but I think it has a possibility to flip.
Yeah, I think it does, but not as close as Ferrari.
Yeah, not as close. Not 4 points
I'm not biting
away.
my nails as much,
And then Alpine is in 6th with 120 points.
You're locked in.
Yeah, that's logged in.
Yeah. Travis, Ryan, that's where you guys are.
Guys.
Yeah.
7th is Williams with 28 points. 8th is AlphaTauri with 21. I don't think
that's gonna change.
I would have to agree. There's been some races where both teams have been really strong, but then there's been some races where both are just not good. And I have a feeling it's the end of the season, and they're just not. The cars aren't doing what they need to right now.
I'll eat my words in the next episode if it does change, but I would be gobsmacked if any of the lower teams really changed, unfortunately.
Yeah, because then in 9th is Alfa Romeo with 16 points, and 10th is Haas with 12 points.
Yeah, so I really honestly think the only thing of merit that might happen is Mercedes and Ferrari. And I think that really depends. Hopefully there's no more car issues for Carlos.
Yeah, fingers crossed, honestly.
Or Charles, honestly, at this rate. It's one or the other. That's the problem.
His car almost blew up 2 races ago.
It's one or the other every weekend.
Yeah, no one ever does.
So, it's Charles' turn to have the bad luck.
Hopefully not anyone.
Yeah, I know, but obviously I don't want them. I'm not
no.
I'm a Ferrari. I'm excited if they pass Mercedes.
Yeah. Yeah,
I agree. Especially because in the middle of the season, I don't know what the hell was going on with them. It was bad.
Which Ferrari?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they were struggling a lot.
Their strategy was so weird.
So. I think it always is.
Yeah.
I think they're known for their bad strategy calls.
That's not a thing I want to be known for though. Especially
yeah, but there's also some really horrible stats and titles that you get in F1. Lando having the most points and podiums ever without ever winning a race.
Or the Deconstructors Cup.
That. I wish I had that pulled up because I would talk about that all day long. So
someone online basically figured out, I don't know how, and I don't know how actual legitimate the numbers are because I don't know where they get the information from, but essentially which driver caused the most amount of money from crashing the car. So it was a little funny, a little morbid. We're trying to.
I think Logan Sargent and Checo are up there.
Esteban.
Is Esteban in first?
I don't know if he's in first. I haven't checked on it in a bit.
He hasn't had problems in a couple of races, I feel like, thankfully. There was a while there where it was just DNF after DNF after DNF for him.
Yeah, it's the power of all those investors.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really all that we have for right now. I think it's a little bit of a shorter episode today. When we record our Abu Dhabi recap episode, we will be back in our normal studio.
Thank God.
We will be back in our normal setting, thankfully. And since we'll be planning for the rest of the episodes for the next couple of weeks, if you guys have any specific like driver that you want us to go over, like a historical driver, like please let us know in the comments on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Let us know if you want us to talk about a specific formula or kind of motorsport. Let us know and we will deep dive into that because we want to do episodes where we talk about like what is IndyCar and how does it work, like how does F1 Academy work, like, all those things. So if you have anything specific you're really intrigued with, let us know and we will make sure that we cover that.
Because odds are, if you're interested in it,
we probably
are interested in it. So
yeah, I think that's everything, and I'm looking forward to a last race of the season.
Yeah, for those that are in the United States of America, happy and healthy and safe Thanksgiving. We are very pumped. Mom's in the kitchen about 15 feet away from us cooking. So, we're probably going to be dragged
immediately
in.
After this, we're going to be told to go and help her cook something.
I mean, I have things I need to bake, but...
I did not volunteer to cook anything.
Happy holidays, and we will see you guys. We will talk to you guys
in a couple of days.
Next episode.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.